For those that don't know, my name is Scott Fetters. I'm Student Success Advisor, Assistant Director of Advising for the St. Augustine campus. Greetings from Florida. Today's session is going to be on time management and organization. Big one. Pretty much every first-term student will make some adjustments, tweaks, and edits to this area of their study routine. And I'll go ahead and add that, and I was just talking to a few students today about this, but your baseline study routines, it's not going to happen overnight. Honestly, not that unusual for it to take a good part of a trimester before you reach your baseline study routine. So there's a lot of things going on, in your first term. So be patient with yourself. There's a lot of things that you're responsible for academically, study routine wise, and so we'll address the time management organizational skills tonight. So let's go ahead and get started. There is that Menti code there. If you could go ahead and log in, that'd be great. It looks like only a few have done that. So go ahead and take a minute to log in there. I've got some interactive questions for you. All right. So outcomes for this session. Identify practical strategies for time management, organization, how to personalize them for yourself. Identify foundational study strategies and how these interact with time management and organization. Last outcome or goal here, to discuss use of time management, organization, and study strategies as stress management that can support academic and just overall health and well-being. So, first question. Which of these activities do you already use to support your academic success? You can vote for more than one. So time blocking, prioritizing, something called SMART goals, practice testing, practice quizzing, and then the stress management techniques. Time blocking, by far the most common response. Pretty cool. All right, thank you for your responses on that. Now, for those watching the recording, I'm going to give some keywords. So the first keyword that you need to remember is baseball. Again, that's just for folks that are going to be viewing the recording of this session. Baseball. All right. Foundations of time management system. So the first two you're probably already familiar with, and I'll have a few comments on that third one, but having it all together So have all your obligations in one place. And the idea is not just academic stuff, but personal obligations, professional and or work obligations as well. So basically keeping things kind of centralized, if you will. Making it routine. So building regular routines around when you check and update such things. For example, meal times. So the idea of getting in the routine, most people respond better to a routine as opposed to just kind of a basic checklist that can be done at any time. So getting in the routine of when you're going to update your obligations and chart your progress and things like that. The third one is kind of important and tricky because basically you're going to not only are you responsible for performing academically in your respective programs, and a lot's going on with that already, right? But you also have to objectively self-assess how all of this is being mapped out. So it's important that you are intentional about being objective about this. This is also where your respective student success advisor can come into play. You can, book a meeting with them after the first few weeks to kind of review some of these things and how you're mapping things out day to day, week to week. But yes, you're going to be doing a lot of self-reflection in a number of areas in your first trimester, and this is going to be one of them, of how you're organizing and structuring your time management, your organizational skills. So just to kind of expand on that a little bit. So the first thing, choosing a format. So Outlook seems to be kind of the popular one. That's what the school uses. That's kind of the recommendation. I don't use it, but Microsoft To Do is something that comes up from time to time. That is something that is offered through the Microsoft suite that the university provides you. Doesn't really matter so much what the format is. Again, Outlook, that's what the university uses. It's okay if you use something else, but that's kind of the first step. Second step, called inflexibles. That's basically things that are going to be locked in, right? So things like, obviously your class time is going to be predetermined and blocked off. Work obligations. So you're going to map out those things first because those really aren't going to change. Those aren't going to move. And then filling in the opposite of that, right? So use the time around your inflexibles to input study, self-care time. Study time needed will vary from person to person, and it will also vary throughout the term as well. Faculty are a good source to kind of get a read on what you can expect time-wise to be putting in, whether it's just general study time, open lab time, what have you. So don't be afraid to drop in a faculty office hour or talk to them before or after class to get their input on, hey, I'm devoting this much time to the course or to prepping for this exam. Am I kind of on target with this? They'll be happy to give you feedback. This is a pretty basic view or an example of a weekly setup, how you can organize your time. Notice the color coding to kind of designate some different things. Saturday and Sunday, some people call it flex time. I think there's an example of that coming up in a later slide. One thing that I will caution about when you're kind of mapping these things out day to day and week to week, you don't want to get too caught up in getting this down right to the minute, right? There are going to be certain days where you're not going to be able to meet the obligations of a Monday or a Wednesday or whatever. So you do have to be flexible with this. This is just kind of an outline to help guide you and keep you on track. Certainly designating certain content areas, certain courses that you want to cover in a given day, certain other tasks that you needed to like give time and attention to, wellness things, work things, whatever it may be. But it should look something along the lines of this. This is just one example. This is also an example or screenshot of the Microsoft To Do. I don't personally use it. It does link across all platforms. It's also an app. Some people prefer to use it, but again, it's really up to you. Okay. Personalizing your system. So the Pomodoro technique, that is essentially, to boil it down, it's actually 20 or 25-minute time blocks, followed up by 5-minute breaks. Now, for the sake of an accelerated graduate student, the minimum I would go with, bare minimum would probably be 45 minutes, maybe an hour, before I would want to take a break. But the idea is essentially 5 20-minute cycles for this technique, followed by a 5-minute break. But again, I would stretch that out, certainly. There is a link into this, so you will have access to the slide deck, and if you want to look into that into more detail, you can. Most of you guys are probably already doing something like that, but feel free to adjust to what fits your needs. The buffers, I kind of mentioned that with the example of the weekly calendar before. So, I mean, personally, yeah, I have like admin or flex time built into my schedule, right? So, and they're strategically placed depending on what I need to get done, or those inflexibles that I need to get done on a certain day. And so having those built in gives you the flexibility to catch up on things, or if you need to allocate more time to something else from a previous day that you didn't feel you gave enough time and attention to, you can add it on, to the following day. So building those in, and this says, an hour twice a week, but, again, adjust as to what you feel would benefit you the most. Eisenhower matrix. And I know this is kind of hard to read here, but I'll kind of map it out for you here. Please mute your mics if they are not already. Thank you. So basically, this is built off two axes of urgency and importance. So, for example, if you have something on your to-do list that is urgent and important, that's going to go in the upper left quadrant of do. If you have something that is not urgent, but it is important, that filters into the upper right category, which is decide. And basically what that just means is you can map that out into your daily or your weekly planner, based on when you need to get it done, since it's not urgent, but it gives you the freedom to decide how you want to slot that in relative to other things that are going on. If something is not important, but it is urgent, that's where it shifts into a delegate mode. And that, like an example of that would be, if we're talking about something that's maybe not academic related, but maybe it's on your to-do list, related to a family obligation or something, or a relationship obligation, maybe you can delegate that to somebody else in your family or a loved one. If it is academic related, maybe this is something you could delegate by way of leaning into technology more than you would if it was something that was important that you would do without the assistance of technology. And then obviously not urgent, not important. That's something you'd kind of want to put into the delete bin. So you're basically prioritizing in this matrix to help you manage things and make sure you meet your goals in a timely manner. Okay, next keyword is going to be curling. Curling. It may be the #1 sport in Canada, but it's the 487th most popular sport in the world. Curling, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Foundations of an organizational system. Okay, so the medium, where are you going to keep all your notes, your study guides, etc.? Now, a lot of folks will go online, right? And that's to be expected. There are some students that swear by having it in a physical location or notes or writing them out. Obviously, that can cut into your time, but some people stand by it because it helps them retain the information better. I also know some students will kind of mix this up a little bit between online and physical based on whatever course it is. So I know this says all in one place, but I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to mixing it up a little bit based on your needs. And if you find that doing things physically as opposed to online helps you retain the information and in effect kind of study the information as you're doing it. Taxonomy that essentially just means how is the information organized. So the examples given there, do you organize it by class and then date, or perhaps class, then learning objective? And so you can have like 2 or 3 different kind of tiers, if you will, about how you're going to organize this information. The learning objective, I would say, has to be in there. That's something that will come directly from your syllabi. I know the faculty tend to emphasize that throughout a term as you're kind of digging into all of the readings, all of the slide decks, all of the information. It can sometimes be easy to forget about, okay, let's zoom out here. What are the main learning objectives of this unit or of this course, or whatever the case may be. So I would highly recommend that the learning objective be one of those tiers as you're organizing this information and putting it together in your organizational system. And then the goal here is to be able to compare and contrast, right? So systems should allow you to identify similar concepts or structures that may be easily confused to better understand the differences between them. You can group the notes by similarity or use something visual to capture this, such as a concept map. So you should be able to compare and contrast after it's kind of all said and done, and how you map this stuff out after the first 2 steps in this. Okay, last key word is going to be basketball for those watching the recording. Basketball. Okay, getting the most out of your time and your systems. So the first one here, come prepared and have goals with each session. Go into each study session with the goal of not just the material you need to review, but also what you need to learn. So it's not really about reading pages 100 through 175, right? It's the objectives of the reading. What do you need to learn from the reading? This includes going into tutoring sessions, having read and conducted independent study ahead of time. So one thing about the tutoring and SI sessions, like those aren't a substitute for the prep work that you should already be doing. Most of those sessions, you should be familiar at least with the material before going into them. So there should already be some kind of learning objectives heading into those sessions. Tie your goals to the unit objectives. So, if you're, again, we'll go back to pages 100 through 175 as an example. That might be a very kind of micro area of the entire unit, but try to tie those to whatever the unit objective is, or the course objective is, or whatever is listed in the syllabi. And then test your knowledge and adapt. So again, how are you going to be objective through assessing this? So Quizlets, Kahoots, conversations with your peers, or maybe you're doing some of these in your group study sessions. So everybody's contributing 5 questions to a mini exam or a mini quiz or whatever the case may be. I do know, not to jump ahead, I know next week's session is test taking strategies, which I'll be in as well. But I know faculty will say it's okay if you create your own test questions or your quiz questions, but what if all the questions are bad, right? So conversations with your peers and holding each other accountable for all this stuff can really be beneficial, okay? Last part there, keep a record of concepts you're struggling with to take to faculty office hours and or tutoring sessions. So this is kind of a little bit more on the resources side, but faculty office hours tend to be an underutilized resource for first-term students. It's not that you need to go every week or even every other week, but you should be sprinkling these in to your baseline study routine, basically, essentially. So that is a great opportunity to get feedback from your faculty, and then you can make those adjustments to your time management and your systems, okay? All right, SMART goals. Some of you guys may have already been familiar with this or even seen this in your courses. If you haven't, you will. The SMART system, if you will, is actually utilized in patient planning. And so SMART just stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound objectives. And so specific, that's kind of a key one there. So the objective has to clearly state so that anybody reading it can understand what needs to be done. So like a non-student, somebody not in your program, should be able to read that goal and clearly understand what it is. Measurable, so objective includes how the action will be measured. Measuring your objectives helps to determine if you are making progress, keeps you on track and on schedule. So going back to your calendar or how you're mapping things out, how are you going to measure this over the course of a week, 5 weeks, a trimester? Achievable, you've got to make sure that the goal is achievable. Sometimes when we make our objectives or our goals, sometimes we kind of overshoot that, and it's not realistic given the realities of the course or the realities of our bandwidth or any number of variables. So make sure that it's realistic. Relevant, obviously we want to make sure that the objective is relevant to the purposes of the bigger picture. So that could be obviously the course, a specific objective within the course. If we're talking about a personal goal, um, a wellness goal or something, what is that going to be tied to as far as sustaining you through the program or through the term, through your health, things of that nature. Um, Time bound, every objective obviously has to have a timeline for a completion. So it's not just going to be about a trimester, the start date, the end date. It could be within that trimester. It could be a month, it could be a week, it could be whatever. This really applies to anything across the board when we're talking about setting our goals. So I'm going to give you an example, and then I'm going to ask you to give an example. These are anonymous, by the way. So an example maybe of a SMART goal, if you want to go for like a personal one. I want to run 30 minutes a day, 4 days a week for 5 weeks. Okay, that's specific, it's measurable, the duration is defined, and that's how I want to map it out. Okay. Now, again, your goals could be personal, it could be wellness, it could be related to a specific course. It could be related to a specific study strategy. So go ahead and take a minute and plug some ideas in there, and let's take a look at it. Stick to a regular sleep schedule. So yeah, that's okay, but again, what you got to define that, and it's got to be more specific than that. Yeah, a lot of exercise examples here. I want to make A/B grades in all my classes for term 1. Complete each course assigned video prior to the next class session. Yeah, so here's a good one. I want to dedicate 20 minutes of yoga before bed each night to promote stress management during the week. Very specific, spells it out. Anybody can understand it reading it. Take a break. I'm going to go ahead and say it needs to be a little more specific. Rock climbing, I like that. Nice. A lot of wellness examples here. That's good. Baking cookies. I like it. Bake 10 cookies every 2 weeks for the next 6 months. You could even break it down by type of cookie if you want. All right. Thank you for all these responses. Let's keep moving here. Okay. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. There's a lot of variance, I think, with this. It's going to be a little kind of specific to each person to an extent. But let's just be mindful about choosing our space. Have a designated study space both on campus and off, and at home. Generally, low traffic area is advisable, although I know some people get a lot done in a coffee shop, for example. I will say, if possible, don't study where you sleep. Don't be afraid to mix it up, try new things. But have your spaces and kind of know that they're available and kind of pick and choose from it and mix it up as you go along. Basically, have them in your back pocket to pick from. The setup. So again, that's going to be kind of person to person. Um, Table, desk, chair, standing, seated. Um, Obviously, you want it to be comfortable, visually appealing. Um, Just an example there about limited space, but again, going to depend on the person. Okay. Um, we're going to talk about some specific examples of wellness as it relates to the time management. So, um, wellness, I guess, a lot of students, I've been at the university for over 5 years. A lot of students that I interact with and talk to about this, usually in like, let's say a traditional undergrad program, wellness and self-care, whatever phrasing you want to use, is kind of just kind of on autopilot. It's almost kind of like an afterthought, or it's kind of like, yeah, this is, I go to the gym 3 days a week. That's just kind of what I do. So I'm going to keep doing it and everything's going to be business as usual. Um, the best way to describe your respective programs, everything's going to get amped up a few notches. So whether it be um, stressors, whether it be constraints on your time management and your bandwidth, whether it be feelings of stress, anxiety, whatever, if they were kind of simmering in undergrad or previously, there's a good chance that it's going to be ramped up a bit. And so my point with this and kind of where I'm going is most folks, by the time they get through their respective programs, have to be a lot more intentional about what they're doing. About their wellness routine, their self-care routine, and how they're incorporating this and making it an intentional part of their day-to-day or week-to-week schedule and building it out. Okay. So what we're going to do is just look at two examples. So the first one is the alternate nostril breathing technique. This is actually, for those of you that practice yoga, this is one of the techniques there. So um, basically what it is you're going to close one nostril and breathe slowly and gently through it. Um, and doing this for 5 to 10 minutes a day on a consistent basis. Uh, Amplify blood oxygen levels, reduce blood pressure, and improve memory. Apparently, it's been proven. So, and you're just going to alternate, right? Left to right. And I'm told it uses both sides of the brain simultaneously, and that's one of the keys to this techniques. The second one is a little more fun maybe for some people, but it's called lion's breath. Some people will call it dragon's breath. So sticking out your tongue and actually roaring like a lion. So it's kind of a visceral type exercise, being very expressive, making a lot of noise, not being shy about it. Um, and so I guess it's been shown to reduce frustration, anxiety, it's a release, if you will. So what I'm going to invite you to do, if you want, you can turn your cameras off if you don't want to do it in front of everybody, but we're going to just take a few minutes where you can utilize both of these techniques. If you're going to do the dragon's roar, just make sure you have enough bail money when your neighbors call the police that you can get out of jail. So go ahead and turn your cameras off if you want. And I'll give you like a minute to try these, and then we'll kind of pick up from there. Okay. All right. I will welcome back all the dragons for the last couple of slides here. I'm not going to go through every part of this slide, but you can find this information in the portal, your MyUSA, under the student wellness section, or the student wellness submenu option um, under the student services tab. So emotional regulation, I guess, in the lower left there, why emotional regulation actually matters. So if we break it down, enhances your focus, decision making, relationships, better communication, reduces long-term stress, right? So you guys are going to have bumps in the road. There's going to be ups and downs. It's not necessarily or not always about the day to day. I mean, it's a you're in long programs. It's, it's not going to be, um, challenges aren't going to be one in a day, that type of thing. It is kind of a long view. First term, it's not really so much about burnout. It's more about kind of feeling overwhelmed and trying to organize things, and that's normal. But there is a cumulative effect to this stuff. I've seen it play out. And so this is an area about the like the wellness and the self-care part and the self-care aspect. If it is neglected over a period of time, it will accumulate and it will kind of rear its ugly head in latter terms. So it is something that you want to intentionally incorporate. Okay. And also incidentally, the student wellness submenu option of the student services tab, that is an area of the portal that I think over the last year or so has really been built out quite a bit. There's a lot of links in there for things that some of the things we talked about here in the last part of the presentation, but a lot of other items as well. I know in one of the like the SMART goals or the word cloud things. A lot of you were talking about like sleep hygiene and things like that. There's a lot of resources in the wellness submenu option of the student services tab. So just know where that is. Keep it in your back pocket if you need to go there. All right. Last question, I believe, or one of the last questions. We've got a few here at the end. Which of these strategies did you find helpful and or do you plan to use to support your academic success? So time blocking, everybody kind of on the front end was kind of already dipping their toes in. But let's take a look at the other things. It looks like there's a lot of dragons out there. Yeah, I mean, all of these are valid, I guess, to say. One that I really do hit on a lot is the practice testing, and making sure to incorporate my peers or your peers into that. Again, faculty have told me it's okay if you create your own practice test questions, but what if they're not valid? So that's one of the benefits of group study. You'll learn about that in a later session, or we'll talk about it in a later session. Okay, interesting. Stress management techniques seem to make a little bit of an imprint there. So good. Thank you again for these responses. Next question, kind of open-ended here. Are there other strategies that you would like to know more about? So we do take feedback on these every term, and we kind of tweak and edit them. So are there other areas, other strategies? Yeah, test taking. So that is next week, actually. I'm co-presenting that. I like that one a lot. So we'll dig into that next Tuesday. Note taking is another one. I think that's after the test taking one. Interesting how to determine importance of tasks. I mean, we kind of had that quadrant little exercise there. That will be in the slide deck. If you want to do a deeper dive on that technique. Wow, a lot of people asking for assistance with the note taking, and that will be coming up. Active sleep. Okay, great. Thank you again. And I think this is the last one. Do you have any study music or playlists that you recommend? Jazz. Silence. Classical piano. Hmm. A lot of folks are saying classical. Interesting. Instrumental Bad Bunny. I do not. I do not have any study music that I want to recommend to anybody, apparently, somebody's saying. Blues. Yeah, I can get on board with that for sure. Final Fantasy VII Remake soundtrack. Okay. R&B, rock, absolutely. That would probably be my personal choice. Drake. This is interesting. I love seeing these responses. Another vote for Drake here. Worship music, that's come up a few times. Okay. And I gotta say, I'm overjoyed that nobody put Taylor Swift. I'm just gonna go ahead and put that out there right now. That will actually lower your cumulative GPA if you listen to her. So it's been scientifically proven. Okay. Um, let's see. I think yes, so there's links here in this last or almost last slide. Excuse me. So when that gets sent to you, feel free to dig in to the library time management guide, iLearn time management video. There's a ton of videos in iLearn if you haven't already utilized that resource. iLearn will be covered a little bit in the next session as well, test taking strategies, but you can go ahead and get in there early if you want. Um, references list, if you want to take a look at it. I will go ahead and hang on this meeting. If anybody has any questions, the only thing that I will ask if the question is kind of more of a personal nature, um, or a sensitive matter, I would just say, I mean, you can certainly reach out to me. I'm Scott Fetters, but you can also reach out to your respective SSA. I'm SSA on the St. Augustine campus. I'm happy to answer your questions if you want to contact me, but you can also reach out to your respective SSA, set up a meeting with them. So otherwise, you guys are free to go. I appreciate you sticking with me here to the end. Have yourselves a good night, and we'll see you next week. if anybody wants to unmute themselves, if they have a question, you can go ahead and just bark out the question if you want. I feel confident, though, that the presentation was so spectacular, you have no questions whatsoever, but I'll still hang on the call here.
Scott, do you want me to stop recording in the event anyone
I think
does want to ask a question?
I think that's a good idea. Thank you, Ashley. I was just kind of thinking about that myself. Thank